Just days after his season ends, one of Formula One's top drivers heads home to Australia. But not for a well-deserved rest. He's here to test himself to the limit.
Hi, Mark Webber here and welcome to Tasmania. This stunning natural wilderness is one of my favourite places on earth, and every year plays host to my off-track adventure race, the Swisse Mark Webber Tasmania Challenge.
In the next half hour, we'll find out what motivates Mark Webber to organise the Tasmania Challenge.
This is not a test drive, is it? It's the real thing. It's over pretty quick. We're not on this planet long.
We'll head back to England to find out more about the engaging Australian and his home near London.
The original guy got clipped by my dad on the mower, and their heads come out, which is a bit spooky.
And we find out all about the family background that ensures Webber stays grounded and humble despite competing in such a high-powered world.
He'll still give you a bit of a clip, like, you know, if he steps out of line, well, there you go, that's what happens.
December 2011, Tasmania, a wild and beautiful island state just south of the Australian mainland. Over 5 days of competition, teams of amateur and professional adventurers have come here to test themselves to the limit in an event set up by Mark Webber himself.
They've got no idea how brutal the terrain can be and how beautiful, how diverse the vegetation can be, how things change. Beautiful waterfalls, single trails, mountain biking, running. It's a beautiful part of the world to have the race, and that's why we're here.
First organised by Webber back in 2003, this is a gruelling test of athleticism and endurance. Competitors take part in a variety of disciplines during the 5-day event. Mountain biking, kayaking and running, more than 350 kilometres of rough Tasmanian terrain.
I think the outdoor sports fits very, very well with my Formula One career. I don't really know how I could train in a gym or get myself prepared, you know, year on year to have the variety of training to make sure that I'm on top of my game, make sure I'm lean, make sure I'm fit, to be able to drive the F1 car over the course of a full season. It's not just one race. You know, we've got to do, you know, prepared for 10, 11 months of the year. So to have that variability and all those different disciplines is a huge advantage for me to have.
The event is a combination of personal challenge and charity fundraiser, with more than $1 million already raised for a range of different causes close to Webber's heart.
I've been very, very fortunate with my profession to be able to do okay with that, and then I've been able to meet very similar-minded people that are passionate about trying to make a difference with people that are less fortunate than ourselves.
Webber makes sure he completes part of the course, but his time is also taken up promoting the event and raising the profile of the charities his foundation supports. For him, it's still a gruelling challenge, in a slightly different way to the rest of the competitors.
Back here, obviously, it's only a few weeks away from Christmas, and I couldn't have the challenge last weekend because I was still racing. So, unfortunately, I can't, you know, be around for the whole race. Because I do have to go to India for an awards night, which is something I just cannot get out of. And then, like you say, I've got team commitments, celebrations with the team, and that's ultimately what takes the priority for myself and what it's all about. So, and then I'll get time to put my feet up.
In 2008, Webber broke his leg competing in Tasmania when a passing car smashed into his bike. The injury still hinders his running, but that didn't stop Mark pushing hard on the first day. Returning to Australia is a rare treat. This is where he grew up and first began to compete in motorsport. Unlike so many top drivers spotted while very young in karting, he only came to the sport as a teenager, thanks to his father, Alan.
All I really wanted to do was just have a lot of fun with him over the weekend, because I'd worked reasonably hard, I suppose. I didn't have a lot of time with him growing up. I mean, we had a lot of fun, played football and all that sort of thing, but anyway, it was one way to try and get together over a weekend, really, and when you go-kart, father and son, was just the perfect way to do it all, really. And started off, he was able to run the front pretty quickly and progressed pretty fast, really, like 2.5 years in a kart, and then we had our first Formula Ford, and 2 or 3 years in that, and well, 2 years in Australia and the 3rd year in the Formula Ford over here, so it all happened pretty quickly, really.
It may have felt quick for Alan, but his son went through all sorts of struggles before he finally got a chance of a drive in Formula One. In fact, at one stage the money was running out, and so were Mark's hopes of ever getting a break. It looked like this might be the closest he'd ever get to a Formula One car. That was when Australian rugby legend David Campese stepped in.
David Campese was very good for me in the early parts of my career. I think with David, he saw in me someone that was, a bit of trailblazing as well, hadn't been done again for a while. 91 was the last time there was a guy in Formula One. There was still some junior young drivers coming from Australia, but it was still hard to get traction and get into the right situation and get the right people supporting you to share that goal. And David did, and he gave me some help financially to get through some tricky phases, and that was a big thing for me, to have someone like him supporting me.
It was the boost Webber needed. He was signed by Arrow's Formula 3000 team and earned the chance to test drive the Arrow's F1 car. The door to the big time had opened. So what about that debt to Campese?
I have paid him back, yeah.
Over the next few years, Webber built a solid reputation with Minardi and then Jaguar before finally getting a chance with a top team when Williams signed him for the 2005 season. It looked like his big break with one of the leading constructors in Formula One.
After I'd sort of made it as a professional, and then in the tougher section of my career was probably at Williams, where I was looking for that sort of, I suppose, the Red Bull situation in terms of results, where you went from proving yourself, putting the stripes in your sleeve, going to a top team like Williams, and then the team having a bit of a wobble when you arrive, which doesn't happen in 3 or 4 weeks. It's the accumulation of obviously a couple of years of things going the wrong way for that to happen for an outfit of that size. So. Which is not always easy to see from the outside, but that's what happened, and things happen for a reason. And then I was there, I learned a lot, and even in that situation, so that was tough.
What was supposed to be his big break had become a huge disappointment. After 2 tough years at Williams, Mark was no longer one of his sport's promising young stars. During a dismal 2006 season, he began to reconsider his whole future in the sport. Then, a relative newcomer to Formula One approached him.
Red Bull at the time was a team that was certainly middle of the grid. The team wasn't particularly, it wasn't super organised. It was a bit of a gamble. It's not completely, a surprise to people that I was looking at maybe not continuing at that point when I finished at Williams to, it's changing like for like, really, same sort of results. I'm going to go somewhere and it's going to be a pretty arduous again, but turned out to work out really, really well, and the team's done some amazing things in the last few years.
That's an understatement. Red Bull Racing have utterly dominated Formula One in recent years. And if much of the glory has gone to young teammate Sebastian Vettel, then Webber has played the perfect support role.
Obviously, I've focused hard on getting to my dreams, but when it happens, it's not, you don't take it for granted. You've got to keep working hard. It's not when you just arrived that you give up. Obviously, that's when the work starts. You always want more. It's human nature. Will you ever race in Formula One? Of course not. It's impossible, everyone says. Forget it. It's not going to happen. You're wasting your time, rah-rah. You get there, and then it starts, obviously, and you would never score a point, You score a point, score a podium, but then you go to, winning races. Obviously, a championship is not yet happened, but it's normal.
Still, he had already won 7 Grand Prix with Red Bull before the 2012 season began, and helped his team to 2 successive Constructors' Championships.
The parts of my job that I absolutely love are testing myself to the limit against the best guys at the trickiest venues, in the trickiest conditions, in the fastest cars that we have. Working with very, very good people as well, that's enjoyable. You know, people, you know, we make decisions, tough decisions. You know, it's only sport. People make much more, you know, difficult decisions that in a lot of different professions that they do. But, you know, in our little world, we make decisions that are sometimes great to get right, and sometimes they don't work, but that's enjoyable.
Red Bull's 2011 season promo showed its 2 cars so close they could not be separated. Reality didn't match the computer simulation though, Vettel proving to be streets ahead of his more experienced teammate and everyone else. Webber finished the year 3rd overall.
Life's not a straight road. We know that. All of us have you know, some bumps and bruises along the way. You know, the guy that's had an absolute seamless life hasn't got many stories to tell. You know, so yes, and in my life, obviously, I've chosen to you know, perform in sport. So sport is also you know, pretty interesting when it comes to trying to have a sustained career at the highest level. So you're going to have some ups and downs with that, and some incredible highs, and obviously some tough lows when you're very, very hard on yourself and competitive individual as I am. So being fair, playing hard but fair, you know, working hard, perseverance, you know, keep fighting, always learning. When you stop learning, obviously that's another big problem as well. It's important to you know, be real with yourself. There's that, you know, great line about the guy in the mirror. If you're lying to him, you're in trouble. So you know, just keep it real and don't get too far ahead of yourself.
And part of keeping it real for Mark is to continue to test himself away from Formula One, which is one of the reasons he revived the Tasmania Challenge after a 3-year pause following his broken leg. For him, it's all about fronting up to a daunting experience.
Absolutely. That's good for us to experience that. That's good for humans to experience that, you know, I'm not sure if I can do this, and you do, you know. Whatever it is, you know, everyone's got different goals. Not everyone likes to have, you know, test themselves physically and mentally to go and do an activity like this. They might find other activities to do it. But in racing, yes, your first Grand Prix, you've never done one. How am I going to drive a Grand Prix car for 2 hours on the limit, you know? Never done it before. But then you do that, and then, you know, you learn more, and then you go, okay, we're going to go to some hot races now. It's going to be even tougher, and there's things which, you know, but then you get the experience and the exposure to do it. Obviously, the bar keeps going higher.
Coming up, we find out more about Mark's background.
My family, you know, always give me a clip around the ear when it's you get too out of hand.
We still give you a bit of a clip, like, you know, if he steps out of line, well, there you go. That's what happens.
Discover his other sporting passions.
I'm a jack of all trades, legend and none.
And get a frank opinion of Formula One.
It's a very big sport. There's a lot of money involved, but, you know, it's very, very shallow and thin.
We've been getting to know Formula One star Mark Webber and finding out more about the Charity Adventure Challenge he's set up in Tasmania. Webber first organised and took part in the event back in 2003.
The motivation behind the Mark Webber Challenge initially was for me I visited a lot of hospitals in Melbourne, a lot of the young children's hospitals, for example, and it was a wake-up call for me, obviously, when you're in your mid-20s and you're, you know, in your little bubble, you know, trucking along, doing your thing, and then you see people that are having some really tough times.
Unlike many other top F1 stars, Webber has chosen to base himself near family and friends in England rather than becoming a tax exile in Monaco or Switzerland.
Relaxing, isn't it?
It's a decision that makes complete sense, given his priorities in life.
This is not a test drive, is it? It's the real thing. It's over pretty quick. We're not on this planet long, so you want to, I think, do things which are right. Obviously, you know, I don't, you know, it's not to me having obviously a crack at other people's decisions, but everyone's got their own ways they want to skin the cat, and you know, as I say, it's worked well for us. For me, basing myself here, we've made it work. As I say, it's not you know, effortless, where there's certain challenges here and there, but generally it works out okay. It's quite good for running and mountain biking around here. Obviously, there's some swimming. There's a few lakes not too far away, but I don't do too much of that. But generally, the mountain biking and road cycling is not too bad in this area. And yeah, it's very rural, as you can see, so it's very easy to unwind here and enjoy the training.
Webber is clearly a pretty grounded soul, even looking out for our cameraman on his bridge.
Just worried about you. It's always nervous about cameraman walking backwards. I've had some. We've seen some decent shunts.
Time for a tour of the home Mark shares with his partner Anne and her son.
Anne likes a bit of the fence way, so yeah, moving water and obviously trying to have some positive energy towards the people in the house. So it has been a coincidence. Obviously, I think we've had it done quite a few years ago now, but we started to get some good results. So I think it was not just about what's happening on the track, but obviously everyday life and things like that. So it's been, yeah, put a bit of effort into it, but it's worked out okay. Terracotta Army over here, which was a warrior, yeah, and he keeps an eye on things. The dogs have finally worked him out, I think. They've tried to attack him a few times, it doesn't really work. Well, it's part of the fence way, I think, a bit of energy, and he's positioned in a location where he can, yeah, just keep an eye on things and look at certain parts of the house here. There's actually a story to this guy, but because the original guy got clipped by my dad on the mower, and their heads come out, which is a bit spooky. So his head got smashed everywhere, which went down not very well. So this is the replacement fella. We got a new one.
Mark's love of the outdoors and of testing himself physically came together for the first time back in 2003 when he organised a gruelling 10-day challenge across Tasmania for charity.
So let's set up this multi-sport adventure race where we can also test ourselves. It's not a 5K fun run, which can be a challenge for a lot of people, but it's got to be something different. We've also got to be a little bit intimidated by it, and that's where it come from. Tasmania, rugged, rural, picturesque, beautiful location, and that's what we did. It was about people doing things that they generally haven't done in their life before, and also the mindset will be firmly on why they're doing it, which was for the kids basically, and people in a less fortunate situation than yourself. So that's where it come from.
Only 2 teams completed the entire 10-day trek in 2003. Webber, of course, was among the finishers. He loves cycling and many other sports and needs to stay fit to compete in Formula One.
Try and ride quite a bit. Yeah, enjoy it a lot. It's good to. I enjoy the mountain biking as well. So both road cycling and mountain biking, and they're really good fun. And yeah, it's good sport. It's good for us because it gives us a good element of endurance. So the Grand Prix is obviously pretty long, so it gives us an idea of the body gets used to training for an extended period of time and have the endurance element, which is quite good.
Mark also loves watching rugby and is a useful tennis player, with a few victories in Formula One's annual tournament to his name.
I'm a jack of all trades, legend of none. So I enjoy the tennis. I'm not particularly good at it at all, just so that the other F1 drivers are pretty rubbish. So you know, so I'm the best of a bad bunch, or have been. Nick Heidfeld hits a reasonable ball. I haven't played with many of the youngsters. Maybe they're a lot better than me, but yeah, we're not very good at it. It's just a bit of fun, recreational sport for us.
Of course, the Tasmania Challenge is a bit more daunting than that, which is what attracts so many people to join Webber on the start line.
You know, when they turn up, they they really are quite intimidated. Am I going to get through this? You know, I've put a lot of effort into it. And to see how they go through that week and come out the other side, just how positive they are and the influence you think that will lead for them, you know, for the next few years of their life. Generally, you know, it's not life-changing, but it does affect how you might go about, you know, doing certain things, because the bar gets raised because you do so many things you haven't done before. And of course, the other, you know, 40% is clearly, you know, focused on the kids and putting something, you know, back into them.
In Tasmania, Team Ironhouse, made up of British expat Mark Hinder and local endurance athlete Mark Paget, took control of the race after some early scares.
I just ran over a snake. That got my heart going.
Despite that close shave, they kept the lead as the finish approached in Hobart. Webber had competed for Team Tasmania on the first day of the challenge, and his teammates Guy Andrews and Darren Clark came in second overall, behind Team Ironhouse, who held on to take victory. Meanwhile, Mark had already left to travel to India for an F1 awards ceremony, and for him, that was tougher than staying the course in Tasmania would have been.
The media and the travel, I think, are the two things which, you know, weigh you down. Unfortunately, you know, there's always going to be media and interest and people having a position on what's happening with your team, what's happening with yourself, what's, you know, trying to read things into situations. So that's sometimes obviously a complete comedy show, but and the travel, it can get quite demanding. But you know, if you want to go to these good places, you need to travel. So that's the way it is.
Here we go. What makes the media more difficult for Webber to deal with is his natural humility. The glam and the glitter of Formula One have never grabbed him as much as some of his fellow drivers. For him, it's all about the driving.
It's a very big sport. There's a lot of money involved, but you know, it's very, very shallow and thin. Obviously, you know, when you get behind it all, obviously there's some still phenomenal people. I work with some really, really good people, clever, sharp, good operators and good people. It's very easy to get caught up in what's normal and what's not normal, you know. So it's there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's put together well, the sport, and it's very, very attractive.
And what keeps him grounded in the showiest sport on the planet is his family.
Biggest influences in my life, definitely Anne and my father. I mean, you know, without those two, I wouldn't be where I am today. Anne's been very influential in my life. I say behind every decent man there's an even better woman, so you never know. But yeah, she's very, very good, and I've been lucky.
Well, he's done very well. I mean, 6 Grand Prix wins, and we're still counting. There's more to do there, I'm sure. But yeah, his feet are still on the ground. I'm sure about that. No, they are. You know, he'll still give you a bit of a clip. Like, you know, if he steps out of line, well, there you go. That's what happens. I'm more frightened of his mother than I am of him, that's for sure.
And with a dad like that, you know Mark will carry on keeping it real regardless of how much he's earning in Formula One. Now 35 years old, he's approaching the end of his driving career, but feels there's still plenty more to come.
My motivation to train and my motivation to prepare and do well and care about doing well is still high, and that's still there. I will be racing next year and continue to strive for very, very, you know, special results. I haven't got many regrets at all, really. I think that, you know, yes, I could have started a bit earlier, come to Europe earlier and got going. If you want to bring your whole career forward 3 or 4 years, that would be nice. And going to a team that won races, you know, like I say, after you've burnt the situation where someone wants to give you that chance to have the opportunity to drive for one of the top teams, it would have been nice to have that at the point I did, but to come off, and it didn't come off. So I had to, obviously, I lost another, you know, 2 or 3 years in that really, really, you know, crucial part of your career that you had to sort of regroup again. So, but in general, you can always turn it into a positive. I think that the opportunities I've had have been sensational, and I've been very, very fortunate to be able to have the career I have.
It was a tough journey to the top of Formula One for Mark Webber. Every step has been hard-earned. He deserves to enjoy the views from the summit.